Kern Government Television. Welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting. Originating from the County Administrative Center, located at 1115 Truxton Avenue in Bakersfield, California. Grounded in ideas, energy, and innovation, Kern County's vision is to be a driving force for the world's fifth largest economy. And our mission is to exceed expectations of the communities we serve, changing the way they feel about government, those who manage it, and the services it provides. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Okay, good afternoon. Board to reconvene. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Supervisor Peters.
Here.
Supervisor Scribner.
Here.
Supervisor Flores.
Here.
Supervisor Couch. Supervisor Perez.
Here.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday, May 9th p.m. Session of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. We'll start first with County Council Margot Rison. Will you please report out of closed session?
Good afternoon, board members. This morning you met on items 63 through 66, and there is no reportable action.
Thank you, Ms. Rison. Okay, at this time, we'll begin by considering the consent agenda. Agendas are located at the end of the chambers for anyone wishing to follow along. All items listed with the CA or C above the item number are considered to be routine and uncontroversial by county staff. The CA represents the consent agenda for the Board of Supervisors, and the C represents the consent agenda for the Kern Sanitation Authority and the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion. If a member of the audience wishes to comment or ask questions regarding an item on the consent agenda, they may do so prior to a vote being taken. A member of the board may remove any item from the consent agenda and will be considered in its listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the board concerning the item before action is taken. At this time, I'll read the consent agenda item numbers for the Board of Supervisors agenda. On page 2, it's item 3. On page 3, item 7. Page 4, items 8 through 11. Page 5, items 12 through 14. Page 6, items 15 through 17. Page 7, items 18 through 24. Page 8, items 25 through 31. Page 9, items 32 through 38. Page 10, items 39 through 46. And on page 11, items 47 and 48. So at this time, is there any member of the public that would like to comment on an agenda item, on the consent agenda items? We have one. Please come forward.
Hello, my name is Sandra Cynthia, and I'm a policy advocate with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. Leadership Council works alongside residents throughout the county who have experienced high rental increases, extreme habitability issues, landlord intimidation, and evictions. We are in a housing crisis throughout the state, and Kern County is no...
Ma'am, I think if you're going to address the board under public comment, you can come...
Item 9.
Oh, is it item 9?
It's
okay.
under consent.
Okay, I didn't hear the item, sorry.
Yeah, housing element.
Okay, keep going, sorry.
Okay, sorry. So we are in a housing crisis throughout the state, and Kern County is no exception to this. Now more than ever, it is vital to adopt and implement a housing element that is inclusive and meets the housing needs of all Kern County residents. Adoption and implementation of the housing element must comply with housing element law. This is essential to fulfilling the county's mandatory duties under state law, Government Code Section 65583C10, meeting the housing needs of all county residents and addressing the fair housing issues. Failure to adopt a legally adequate six-cycle housing element would negatively impact county residents in lower income communities like Lamont, Fuller Acres, Hilltop, Buttonwillow, and many more. Mainly because it contributes to a severe shortage of decent, quality, affordable, and stable housing in the county. In order to properly identify community housing needs, the county should have a proper and thorough community engagement plan. We recommend the county to work alongside CBOs, community leaders, and activists to develop and engage this plan. Additionally, in order to comply with AFFH public participation guidelines, the county should provide information on the housing element in multiple languages, including but not limited to Spanish, Punjabi, and Mixteco. Lastly, we urge an effort to connect with the indigenous community, farm workers, and other disadvantaged communities that have been historically left out of these very important updates. Their needs must be addressed during this update. The county has a duty to affirmatively further fair housing. To properly further fair housing, the county must enact programs and policies that undo historical segregation and discrimination and patterns in housing. This can be done through enacting an inclusionary zoning ordinance, placing affordable housing units in higher opportunity areas, and analyzing and addressing AFFH housing disparities. Thank you for your time and consideration. We look forward to working with the county to make sure that all Kern County residents have access to affordable, equitable, and safe housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments on the general plan and housing element. Next speaker, please.
And I'll be speaking on 3 items, 40, 41, and 42. We could. Good afternoon, Honorable Chairman Flores and Supervisors. My name is Rebecca Vaughn. You're probably tired of seeing me here, and I'm tired of being here. But what we're hearing and what is being presented to your board are 2 different things. At the board meeting of April 25th, 2023, Mr. Devin Brown stated, and I quote, "Instead of exacerbating the issue by increasing salaries for one classification at a time, we felt that it was appropriate at this point to do a more thorough review of all management positions up through county department heads and determine what is the best salary for each position. Yet on agenda items 40 and 42 address pay equity and compaction, and item 41 creates new management positions, 2 of which are fiscal manager positions. On 2 previous occasions, I've requested the same consideration for the business manager, the ASO, the senior fiscal services officer, and the division director for fiscal research and planning positions. My first question is, why are the management positions on items 40, 41, and 42 being considered for pay increases, along with other recent management increases, if the CEO said they were going to wait to do a study first? Secondly, what was the basis for determination of the pay for the Casera Director of Audit and Compliance and the Deputy Director, as these are fiscal management positions? Thirdly, what was the determination for the pay increases for the other management positions in items 40, 41, and 42? And as I've mentioned before, our department business manager, as an example, oversees the accountant positions. He earns the same hourly wage as the people he supervises. This is highly inappropriate, unfair, and unprofessional. Until a study can be done, the appropriate, fair, and professional thing to do is at least increase the pay to other comparable positions, or equal to at least the percentage that the subordinates that they supervise received. 2 minutes is just not enough to present this issue, so I respectfully like to request a meeting with each one of you to discuss the issue in detail. Also, though my chief could not be here today, he has offered for you to contact him directly to discuss this issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vaughn. Oh, Ms. Perez.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that. You know, my staff is up there. They've heard this presentation. You know, we'll schedule a meeting right away. And I look forward to hearing from you. So thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Ralph Robles. I am a veteran.
Timer.
At her presentation, Ms. Amy Espinoza stated that a hand count of ballots was too expensive. I did a little research and found that Alaska has the money for a hand count. Colorado has the money for a hand count. Idaho has the money for a hand count. Kansas has the money for a hand count. Massachusetts has the money for a hand count. Minnesota has the money for a hand count. And Missouri has the money for a hand count. Montana has the money for a hand count. New Hampshire has the money for a hand count. Texas has the money for a hand count. Vermont has the money for a hand count. West Virginia has the money for a hand count. And Wisconsin has the money for a hand count. I'd like, while I'm here, to remind you folks that I have brought you a list of questions about past elections, none of which you have satisfactorily answered. When am I going to get answers to my list of questions? I can stand here and wait out my whole 40 seconds. I remind you, when you raised your hand and took the oath of office, you were no longer a nameless, faceless staff person. You no longer can just pass the buck to another poor schmuck that can't answer the questions. You are the decider. You are the funder. The buck stops with you.
Thank you, Mr. Robles. We're still under the consent agenda comments. We kind of fast forwarded to public comments, but is there anyone that wants to speak on the consent agenda before we move for adoption? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board for consent action.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda and to adjourn as the Board of Supervisors and reconvene as the Kern Sanitation Authority.
Second.
Thank you. Members, cast your vote.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Couch.
Okay, thank you. We are now sitting as the Kern Sanitation Authority and will consider the consent agenda, which includes all items C1. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on that consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
So moved on consent.
Okay,
Second.
Motion and second. Members, cast your vote.
And Mr. Chairman, that motion includes adjourning as the Kern Sanitation Authority and reconvening as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District?
Yes.
I don't accept that, Kathy.
Thank you.
Just kidding. We'll include that in the motion.
Thank you. The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Couch.
Okay, thank you. We're now sitting as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District and will consider the consent agenda, which includes item C2. Is there any member of the audience that would like to talk about that consent agenda item? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve that consent agenda and to adjourn as the Ford City Taft Heights Sanitation District and reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
So moved.
Okay, motion.
Second.
Motion second. Members, cast your vote.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Couch.
Okay, thank you. Now is the time for public presentations. Okay, we've reconvened as the Board of Supervisors and we'll consider item number 4 under public presentations.
Good afternoon.
Let
Board.
me read, sorry. Thank you. This is a portion of the meeting that's reserved for persons to address the board on any matter not on this agenda, but under the jurisdiction of the board. Board members may respond briefly to statements made or questions posed. They may ask a question for clarification, make a referral to staff for factual information, or request staff to report back to the board at a later meeting. Also, the board may take action to direct staff to place a matter of business on a future agenda. Speakers are limited to 2 minutes. Please state and spell your name before making your presentation. Thank you. Now's the time.
Okay, thank you. Paul Linfesty, Paullinfesty, District 3. I wasn't here in person this morning, but I did watch on the TV this morning, and I want to say that I was really impressed with the presentation that was made and put on the agenda for how we handle flooding potential possibilities. I've seen the information, little bits and pieces before, but this is the first time I saw a comprehensive thing of how it worked. So I think that was really, really helpful. And I thank you all for allowing that to be on the agenda this morning. I would make just a slight suggestion, because it was such a good introduction to how it works. Perhaps, and maybe it's already on the website, I don't know, but maybe have a highlighted button for flood, because it has been on people's minds, including mine. And I think that might be helpful if maybe they could actually cut out that presentation today or put the PowerPoint on. But anyway, I got a lot of information today, and I think it was very helpful to understand the process and how we go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, it's a great idea to have a highly visible link on our webpage. Come forward. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Chairman Flores and Supervisors. I am Cindy Parra, CINDY PARRA, and I am here today representing Bike Bakersfield. And I wanted to remind you all that May is Bike Month. I have a handout that the clerk has given you with dates and times of rodeos that are coming up in all over Kern County. We started our first event last week at Williams Elementary School on the east side, and we invited parents and children to come out and participate in the safety rodeo. We gave out and fitted helmets. We did minor bike repairs, and we'll be doing that in the communities Lamont, McFarland, Arvin, Oildale, Taft, Delano, and Button Willow, and Kern River Valley. We will do the same in those communities. We will offer a safety rodeo, helmet giveaways, and we would also like to invite supervisors, staff, everybody in Kern County to join us for a Bike to Work Day, Bike to Work Week. We
Thank
are
you.
scheduling different Bike to Work days all over the county. Our first one was this morning in Wasco. Mr. Reyna and his staff joined us. We would like to invite you all to come out on the 17th. We will ride with you from your home to the county building, or if you would like, we're going to lead a group from Central Park or a group from Beach Park and ride into downtown on the 17th. And then on the 19th, we will have commuter stands at different areas, locations in Kern County and Bakersfield to
Thank
encourage
you.
people to ride their bikes.
Thank you, Ms. Parra.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think our timer was a lot of whack there. Thank you. Any more public speakers? Now's the time to come speak. Okay. Okay. Seeing none, we'll move forward. Board member announcements or reports. Okay. That brings us to item number 6 on our PM agenda under Planning and Natural Resources. This is a request of the Sierra Club, original applicant Summit Capital Ventures, to appeal the decision of the Planning Commission for approval of vesting tentative tract map number 6812, which authorized 260 residential lots located on the south side of Rayner Road. Ms. Oviatt, would you like to start the presentation for staff?
Good afternoon. Chairman Flores, members of the board. I'm here today with Craig Murphy, Assistant Director. This matter, as you note, is an appeal of vesting tentative tract 6812, which would divide a 79.75 acre site into 260 residential lots. The site, as you note, is located on the south side of Reno Road between Leonard Alvarado Road and Rudd Avenue and is actually coterminous with the City of Bakersfield city limits. It is in the Western Rosedale specific plan, which requires connection of public sewer and water for residential development. And sewer will be provided by North of the River Sanitary District and water by Von Water Company. Lots range in size from 7,240 square feet to 16,347 square feet. There is a drilling island lot, a sump lot, and a 3,954 acre landscape lot. To resolve mineral rights issues, a 2.86 acre drill line was established through drilling island zoning, which was approved by your board in March of 2022. The request includes limited design variations to the land division ordinance to allow blocks in excess of 1,320 feet, blocks less than 2 tiers of lots wide, double frontage lots, key reverse corner lots. These are all required because this is adjacent to the railroad, so it is a piece of property that has challenges with design, as well as the request for your board for waiver of signatures of mineral right owners in accordance with section 18.15.030K of the Kern County Land Division Ordinance. All issues on the request to waive the signatures of the mineral rights holders on the final map have been resolved with those mineral rights owners, and information has been detailed in the record. A full description of the site and the proposal is included in your staff report, pages 1 through 4. And as noted on pages 4 and 5, in 2009, the original general plan designations were changed from agriculture to residential with a full environmental impact report. A conceptual layout of this tentative tract was included in the EIR and analyzed. The Sierra Club did submit comments which were addressed in the EIR and staff report, but no legal challenge was filed in 2009. Consideration of the actual vesting tentative tract 6812, which is before you today, was then delayed for many years due to the collapse of the mortgage banking market and the resultant recession. Further, the project design was required to accommodate noise mitigation with proximity to the railroad and address the mineral rights surface owner's right to drill. In March, as I note, of 2022, your board considered a zone change to site the drilling island and made the appropriate findings for removal of the mitigation measure requiring an agricultural easement that the Court of Appeal of the 5th District invalidated in the oil and gas EIR case decision. Impacts associated with the March 2022 actions were assessed in a CEQA Addendum Number 1. A notice of determination was filed on March 2nd, 2022, and under the Public Resources Code, any action challenging that decision would have needed to be commenced within 30 days of the March 2nd, 2022 date. No comments were submitted at that hearing and no legal challenge was filed. The Planning Commission considered these matters on January 26, 2023, and the project and all related actions were approved on consent with the CEQA Addendum Number 1. So a CEQA addendum is a document prepared to review projects presented for a discretionary decision after certification of a full environmental impact report. The addendum assesses if the project will result in substantial changes requiring major revisions of the EIR, or new information has occurred that made any impacts more significant than what was originally described, or the project will have significant effects not discussed in the EIR, mitigations that were rejected are now feasible and need to be included, or there are alternatives or mitigation measures very different from those discussed in the final EIR that have now been identified. So that is the screening method that we use when we look to see if we need to do a subsequent EIR based on the originally certified one, or whether we can just provide you with an analysis of how we arrived at the conclusion that we do not need to do a subsequent or supplemental EIR. The addendum reviews each category of impact discussed, looks at any not discussed, and reviews to the list of criteria. Since the vesting tentative track 6812 is substantially the same as the conceptual layout used in the FEIR, and changes to the project design were made to reduce the noise impacts of the railroad, the Addendum Number 1 supported the finding at the Planning Commission that the mitigation measures adopted based on the 2009 FEI were sufficient. And if you could put up the other picture that shows the location of this. The Sierra Club has appealed that decision, and all materials submitted by them are provided to you today in the staff report. We have also prepared an Addendum Number 2, which looks at the difference between January 2023 and today. Has any of those criteria changed between January 2023 and today? Has there been new information? Has there been a new substantial change to the project? Any of those things. So Addendum Number 2, CEQA Addendum, has been provided to you. We have provided a detailed reply to the Sierra Club issues, and basis for appeal has been included in the full record along with the CEQA Addendum prepared. The Sierra Club request is not to deny the project, but to refer it back to staff with instructions to prepare a supplemental or subsequent EIR. The appeal letter received on Friday is additional information from their law firm, and it specifically takes issue with the following issues. 1, the previous mitigation requirements for buying agricultural easements to mitigate for the land previously being used for productive crops is lawful. Such mitigation cannot be removed, and the county is misinterpreting the decision in the appeals court findings in the oil and gas ordinance and final environmental impact report, which is known as King Gardner Farms versus County of Kern, 5th District decision. And the expiration of the Metropolitan Bakersfield HCP requires a new review under CEQA, and that all of this evidence, which has just been referenced in this letter, requires a supplemental environmental impact report. Once again, the letter requests that your board refer the matter back to staff with instructions to prepare a subsequent EIR. We have provided you with an addendum along with a letter from the applicant's biologist, a qualified biologist, to provide more information for the record. The addendum to the Rena Ranch Project Environmental Impact Report looked to see if the project modifications approved by the board in March of 2022 would cause significant impacts that were not previously analyzed. That was Addendum Number 1. We did a second addendum to look to see if there were any changes from the Planning Commission decision to today. There is no evidence in the record that has been provided by either the appellant or by our review as staff that there's any change in circumstances or new information that would require a supplement or subsequent EIR. Clearly, there are many court decisions that we ourselves disagree with, and apparently the Sierra Club disagrees with the decision of the appeals court. That does not mean that you can just ignore it. So the planning department is implementing the decision by the appeals court, which stated that agricultural easements are not mitigation. This project has not been under cultivation for a while. There is no agricultural water that has been allocated to this piece of property. It is not under a Williamson Act. It is not in the Ag Preserve, and as you can see, it is not on the outskirts of town. It is actually an extension of the very real work that is done to build out metropolitan Bakersfield since 2009 and the approval of this project. The comment further takes issue with clarifications to the biological mitigations, MM 4.4-2, and asserts they require review by wildlife agencies. We do note that this is a clarification. We have included these biological mitigation measures to be clear to the applicant and to your board that they are requirements. These measures are consistent with and more protective than the same mitigation that have been required under the Metro Bakersfield HCP over the last 29 years. It is a misunderstanding of the expired Metro Bakersfield HCP that you just pay a fee at the building or grading permit for coverage. That is not accurate. You don't just pay a fee. You are also required to do the entire list of detailed requirements that we have put in this mitigation measure. Pre-construction surveys, different types of operational surveys, different types of restrictions when you actually do the construction to protect a variety of species. So we have included all the biological mitigation. These are the same things that are on the Grapevine project. These are the same requirements that are on the thousands of houses that you see on this picture. It is not a requirement that we have. We have sent a notification to the wildlife agencies who have indicated to me these are exactly the same things we've been doing since 2009, if you don't want to go back 29 years to 1994. These are the same requirements since 2009. They are acceptable. And the fact that we don't have a Metro Bakersfield Habitat Conservation Plan does not change the fact that the applicant, if they have endangered species on their property, will have to go and consult with Fish and Wildlife. An HCP is a voluntary agreement. There is no requirement that the county have one. There's no requirement that the county participate in one. The circumstances of today are very different from 1990 when the city and the county got together and decided to do this 29-year Habitat Conservation Plan. The amount of land that has been bought, over 30,000 acres to preserve for habitat over that time, does not disappear simply because we are not collecting a fee on this project. Therefore, we have made the determination that we have sufficiently covered the mitigation that was anticipated in the 2009 Environmental Impact Report. We have made those findings in the CEQA Addendum number 2. I also note that the Sierra Club provided us with the original comment that they made on Rena Ranch, and we have made sure that that is included in your addendum. But since 2009, the state of California has strengthened the Housing Accountability Act to ensure that appropriately zoned residential projects are permitted and constructed without additional and unnecessary reviews. This project has been designated residential since 2009. The vesting tentative tract would provide for 206 residential homes. There is, as you noted from a comment in during the previous public comment, that there is a residential housing crisis. Many people seem to think that that is only low-income housing. That is not only low-income housing. The housing crisis is across all varieties of sizes of lots and numbers of lots. This project is appropriately in the direction of growth. It has public sewer, it has public water, and all that is before your board today is the vesting tentative tract and addendum number 2. The issue of ag easements, your board removed in 2022. That is not before your board to consider. Certainly they can raise any issues they like. I am only providing you the legal background on our determinations and recommendations. And with that, our recommendation is to deny the appeal, adopt Section 15091 findings of fact and Section 15093 statement of overriding considerations, adopt mitigation measure monitoring program, adopt resolution and recommended findings approving vesting tentative track map number 6812 with the associated limited design variations to allow blocks in excess of 1,320 feet, blocks less than 2 tiers of lots wide, double frontage lots, and key reverse corner lots, subject to the recommended conditions of approval, and approve the request for waiver of signatures of mineral rights owners. And I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Oviatt. Any questions of staff before we go to the appellant? Okay, seeing none. At this time, we'll go to the appellant to make their presentation. Please come on down.
My name is Gordon Knipp. I am the vice chair of the local Sierra Club chapter. We've sent in a number of comment letters, and you should have them before you. Let me just mention several issues that we've raised in there. First of all, habitat loss. The current Metropolitan Bakersfield General Habitat Conservation Plan expired on January the 1st. No, it's no longer in effect. A couple of points here. The mitigation measure 4.4-1 for this project, requiring payment of the old $2,145 per acre Habitat Conservation Plan fee, has not been deleted, still on the books. With the expiration of the plan, will this fee still be required as it is in this mitigation measure that's still in the books? If so, how will these funds be used? Nearly $170,000 of funds. How will these funds be used without a habitat conservation plan? Secondly, according to the EIR, San Joaquin kit fox, burrowing owls, and Swainson's hawks have a moderate potential to occur on site, and the site provides suitable foraging habitat for the kit fox and the Swainson's hawk. Loss of these 80 acres of foraging habitat is an indirect impact that, without the Metropolitan Bakersfield Habitat Conservation Plan fee used to purchase replacement habitat, is not being addressed. Other indirect impacts, such as increased vehicular traffic and vehicle strikes, are also not being addressed without the Habitat Conservation Plan. To address these issues without the Metropolitan Bakersfield Habitat Conservation Plan, consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife should be required before project approval. If you approve this project now, without input from wildlife resource agencies, neither you, the decision makers, nor I, in the public, have any idea whether there are significant species and habitat issues, nor do we know what mitigation may be required. It is not the right thing to do to make an uninformed decision on this important issue without knowing what the impacts are or without knowing what mitigation will be required. Let me talk just a bit about farmland loss. The project will convert about 80 acres of prime farmland, but the county is not requiring any mitigation whatsoever, essentially, based on its erroneous reading of King and Gardner, which the county takes to hold that agricultural conservation easements are no mitigation at all. This is incorrect, because according to CEQA, any mitigation, even if it doesn't reduce the impact in significance, is better than none at all. Second, if the county is concerned that mitigation at a one-to-one level is insufficient, then the right thing to do would be to require conservation easements at a higher ratio, maybe 2-to-1 or 3-to-1, as other agencies in California are doing. Let me talk a little bit about air pollution. A recent Guardian article ranked Bakersfield as the #1 most air polluted place to live in the U.S. 31% of the children in Kern County have asthma. It is not the right thing to do to let new developments like this one make our dirty air even worse. This sprawling development with no public transportation, essentially, should mitigate its air pollution impacts to zero, like other projects have done recently. The climate crisis. Urgent actions are needed to consider human-caused climate change, says a new report released by the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, quote, "Humanity is on thin ice, and that ice is melting fast." Pope Francis recently said that climate change has brought our world to, quote, "the limits of suicide." It is not the right thing to do to let new developments like this one make our planet's future even worse by emitting new greenhouse gases. If we care about the sort of existence our children and grandchildren will have in the future, this development should be doing updated, robust mitigation for the climate crisis. Housing. This sprawling project will build 260 expensive houses on about 80 acres of prime farmland. A couple of points here. Our community has a need for affordable housing, a need which will not be met by this project. Were this project to build affordable housing at a higher density, say for the sake of discussion at 10 units to the acre, 260 units at 10 of affordable housing at 10 units to the acre would fit on 26 acres of this 80-acre property. If this project were built on 26 acres instead of 80 acres, 80 minus 26, 54 acres of farmland could be preserved. Not only would you be helping low-income folks to get housing, but you would be helping to address the farmland loss issue. We would urge you to consider increasing the density of this project. Now, as advocates of the current proposal, your planners will say that the property is not zoned for 10 units to the acre. But zoning can be changed. For that matter, you just changed the zoning on this property about a year ago. It seems to us that common sense would dictate that new developments like this should unambiguously address the loss of habitat when the county no longer has a habitat conservation plan. That it should address the climate crisis as we approach the thin ice. That it should fully address air pollution in this most polluted city in America. Common sense should dictate that you send this project back to the planning department to do a subsequent or supplemental environmental impact report and address these issues. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Knipp. Okay, I don't know if the applicant's here, but if you are and you would like to speak, now is the time.
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair Flores and Supervisors. I'm Whitney Jackson with McIntosh & Associates, representing the owner and developer of the proposed tentative map.
I'm sorry, can you repeat your name?
Whitney Jackson.
Thank you.
This map is comprised of 80 acres of land to be subdivided into 260 single-family residential lots. You may remember this project as your board approved the zone change and addendum EIR for this on March 1st last year. There was a farmland conversion study prepared that was also approved to discuss the loss of prime farmland. This map will be helpful for the county to meet its regional housing needs assessment goals for the California state housing crisis by providing 260 residences to the community. Both low and high income housing is required. The developer will construct road improvements, landscape enhancements that will benefit the community. We find the project to be beneficial in providing ample housing that is desperately needed, and we ask your board to overturn the appeal and approve our vesting tentative tract map 6812. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. At this time, I'll open up the public comment period. Any members of the public that would like to speak to this item, now is the time. Okay, seeing none. I'll go back to staff. Does staff want to call any experts or respond?
No experts to be called, and I'm prepared to provide information.
Okay. Thank you. We'll close the public hearing then and come back to the board for actually, we have Supervisor Peters. Supervisor.
I have some supplements for the record, however, now that you've closed the public hearing.
Okay. Well, we'll go with you, Ms. Oviatt,
Supervisor
and then
Peters.
to Supervisor Peters.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So first of all, I would like to clarify, and we really appreciate Mr. Knipp bringing this to our attention, that the copy of the staff report that has been provided still has mitigation measure 4.4-1, which required the payment of fees. It was to be deleted. Therefore, we are going to be revising the recommendation on the mitigation measuring module to delete MM 4.4-1. It does not legally exist anymore. There is no program that you can pay into. Therefore, we have an invalid mitigation measure that requires that you pay into a program that doesn't exist. That's number one. Number two, we have required the same voluntary emission reduction agreement, which we call a developer emission agreement. In 2009, it was imposed on this project at 4.3-6. The language does say under 2 tons because that is the equivalent of no net increase. That is the equivalent of zero. There is no such thing as zero in the Air District's parlance for a VERA. This is the same mitigation measure that we placed on every other project. So they are going to do the same thing. Since 2009, the Green Building Code has gone into effect. They will be required to put solar on the houses. That was not a requirement in 2009. They were required to do all the other things that the Green Building Code requires. Therefore, this project is actually advanced beyond what was originally proposed in that 2009 EIR. The land is no longer prime farmland. It is not prime farmland now. It is designated for residential. The water that would have been provided for this has been moved off this by the previous owner for the Sustainable Groundwater Act. This project now will be required to get public water. It is not agricultural land. As far as the wildlife agencies, CEQA says that if we ask for a comment from an agency and we receive no comment, we can assume that there is no comment. We have provided this document on numerous occasions. In March of 2022, when we removed the ag mitigation and did the GI, at the Planning Commission, we provided that to the wildlife agencies, and we provided today, and we received no comment from them. Regarding the incidental take permit, once again, the enforcement of the Endangered Species Act is the responsibility of the wildlife agencies and the responsibility of the owner of property. The biologist has provided you a letter, and we have reviewed the project site. Providing foraging habitat is not enough to require an incidental take permit. The Metro HCP that was established in 1990 was actually a compromise agreement by all the people who own property in Metro Bakersfield, that even if they had no presence of an endangered species, they would pay. They are not legally required to pay. If the property is not used by an endangered species, there's no requirement for an incidental take permit. And the biological mitigation that has been incorporated, and we're asking you to incorporate into the mitigation measures, will require the surveys necessary. If an endangered species is discovered, they will be required to go and get an incidental take permit. That is the normal process that every other county and every other area outside the Metro Bakersfield does in the unincorporated areas. It is just that for 29 years, we have had this unusual habitat conservation plan and this unusual agreement between all the developers, property owners, and the county and the city. That is a voluntary communication. Right now, there is no regional Metro HCP in place. There are discussions to have one, but there is no report to your board at this point. And whether we have one or not is not before your board. So At this point, I'm open for questions, and when you're ready, I have a revised recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Oviatt. Supervisor Peters.
Thank you, Chairman. I think Director Oviatt just answered most of my questions with her response. Just some comments, though. As a lifelong asthma sufferer, just like everybody else in Kern County, I'm concerned with air quality as well, but I'm more concerned with the Bay Area that contributes 30% of our air quality issues here and continue to try and restrict our oil and gas industry, much more so than I'm concerned with somebody trying to create additional housing here. So that's not a concern for me. On the topic of the housing crisis, how many acres did we recently rezone for high-density housing throughout the county? I think it was in the hundreds, if I'm not mistaken.
It was 350 acres, which we think will produce 4,000 to 5,000 units.
That's outstanding. I know every project we have can't be high-density housing, but we're working on that front as well to create that, so thank you for that. And then lastly, just to touch back on the endangered species concern that was brought up, if there were some endangered species on that property, the developer would still have to consult with Fish and Wildlife or something like that to mitigate for that?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, I think that's all the comments or questions I have for right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other board member comments? Okay, don't see any. Entertain a motion.
I will entertain a motion on staff's revised recommendation.
I'll second that. Thank you for the very thorough presentation.
So if I may read it in the record.
Yes, please.
Deny appeal, adopt section 15091, findings of fact, and section 15093, statement of overriding considerations, adopt mitigation measure monitoring program with the deletion of mitigation measure 4.4-1, adopt resolution and recommended findings approving vesting tentative track map number 6812 with the associated limited design variations to allow blocks in excess of 1,320 feet, blocks less than 2 tiers of lots wide, double frontage lots, and key reverse corner lots, subject to the recommended conditions of approval, and approve request for waiver of signatures of mineral right owners.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Oviatt. We have a motion and second. Members, cast your vote.
The motion is approved. 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Couch.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to adjournment. Having no additional items to consider, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to Tuesday, May 23rd, 9 a.m.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Not have died in vain.